Alright, just gonna fiddle with some graphic settings on Cyberpunk. So we're gonna start off with resolution scaling off, frame generation off, ray tracing off, everything is off. The only thing I'm gonna leave on high is the crowd density, but everything else is on the lowest possible setting. Color precision only goes to medium, it's the lowest you can put it on. So as you can see, we're sitting at 150 to 160 FPS, which that's quality. It's getting up to 170 here. Like the game still looks nice. Like if this is the lowest possible settings you can play Cyberpunk on, like that's a win. I feel like this looks great, but in saying that, this is an RTX 4090 and a i9-14900K. So it's obviously the top of the line CPU graphics card at the moment. But I mean, yeah, still looks fantastic. We'll change some settings now. So we'll turn ray tracing on, path tracing on. We'll see what happens. Okay, so we have 40, wow. Okay, so we're sitting at around 40, 45 FPS. The game has taken a massive hit. So obviously turning ray tracing, path tracing, etc., turning that stuff on absolutely is a punish. So that, yeah, heavy duty. So obviously 40, that looks gross. You can see that. It makes me feel sick looking at that. It's all, the screen, yeah, don't want that. Okay, so let's change some things. We'll turn DLSS frame generation on. We'll just change that one now and see what that does. So now we're getting around 80 FPS now. So you're getting an extra 40 to 45 frames from just turning DLSS frame generation on. So that's a win. And, yeah, that's awesome. For me though, I like playing at around 120 plus FPS if I'm playing Cyberpunk. I'm just most comfortable with that. So 80 for me still feels a bit yuck. So we'll change some other things. We'll turn resolution scaling on and we'll leave it on quality. And I like my sharpness at 1. You can fiddle with that to your desire, but for me, I just like everything as sharp as possible. I just like the way it looks. Everything else is still off and on low. Let's see what this does. Okay, now we're sitting at 130 FPS. Okay, that's still pretty clean. I like playing it around 120, 130. Okay, so the game still looks great. We've got that on quality. We'll turn DLSS super resolution. We'll change that in a second. Everything else is still off. Film grain looks gross. I always leave that off. Chromatic aberration kind of makes the screen a bit blurry on the side, so I always leave that off. Everything else we'll just turn on, and yeah, we'll turn everything else on ultra, psycho settings, high, whatever, the max we can do. So, all right, everything's up. Let's see what we got. Okay, so we're sitting at 90, 100, 120 FPS. Okay, so this is essentially the max settings that I like to use. I could probably make a tiny little tweak somewhere else, but I feel like this for my setup with an RTX 4090 and an i9-14900K, this is probably the best settings. DLSS super resolution quality is the best setting I've found out. If you change it to ultra performance, which you would assume means you're going to get the best, it's going to be the best option, right? The game, like, it just turns to mud. It's like if you can see it almost instantly, like everything just goes kind of blurry and fuzzy. Like you can see in the people walking past, you can notice it the most with them. Like they're a bit blurry. It just looked gross. When I first started playing this game, I put everything on ultra settings and I couldn't quite figure out why it looked like trash, but it was this specific setting. So yeah, if you go into DLSS super resolution, I'd put that on quality. That, for me, I get the best, the game looks the best, runs the best, looks the best on that setting. So ultra performance for that, I don't know what goes on with that, but it just looks trash. So quality is the best option there. So you're constantly sitting at 120 FPS on these settings. This is usually what I run the game on. In combat, I've never really seen it drop below 100. All right, so yeah, DLSS is super resolution. We'll put that on. We'll put that on Nvidia DLAA for the moment and see how that looks. We'll just change that. Okay, so we're sitting at now 80 frame. excuse me, 60 to 80 frames. 79 FPS. Okay, so you losing about 40 to 50 frames putting it on this setting. So I mean, I guess it might look a little bit better. I can't really notice, honestly. So I'd basically just leave that on. Yeah, I wouldn't leave it on that setting for me. I think quality is the best option. The game runs the best. Sharpness, I just leave that on 1. That's just personal preference. Everything's on now, so ray tracing, path tracing, DLSS, frame generation, crowd density high, field of view is 100, film grain, you can turn that on if you want. Like, you can't really notice it here, I don't think, but certain parts of the game that film grain looks yuck. I don't like it. It doesn't affect anything with performance. It's just personal preference. I just turn that off. Yeah, film grain off, chromatic aberration. I've noticed when I turn that on, around the edge of the screen gets a bit blurry. I think that's the effect. I don't like it. Everything else on. Everything's at max now. So this is usually what I run Cyberpunk on. These settings here, and I get the best performance. So like I said, an RTX 4090 and an i9-14900K. So GPU, CPU basically maxed out that you can get. And so if you have a similar setup to that, these settings here, I find are the best possible ones to run. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.